Greetings, everyone. I hope that you are all safe. I hope that you are healthy and well. I thought tonight that I would present to you my interpretation of Form 2, my first basic combat, lightsaber combat form demonstration video has received a lot of positive comments, and I appreciate them. Since then, I have attended a historical European martial arts class, HEMA, and we have been studying specifically single stick, and I thought that it suited itself very well to applying it to something similar to Form 2 of Makashi. So, first of all, I would like to share from you from this publication, The Jedi Path. Now, this is a Legends continuity publication. It was published, the latest version is 2014, and so that is before the Disney acquisition. And so everything in here is about up to Clone Wars. So let me share some of this from you. Now, the entry here comes from Jedi Battlemaster Scarch Vonk here. Okay, interesting little tidbit here from Yoda. Know themselves, Padawans must, before a unique lightsaber they can build. So, let's read a little bit about what Master Vonk, Battlemaster Vonk, said about Form 2. The second form of classical lightsaber combat, Makashi, is also known as the contention form, or the way of the Ysalamiri, after a curious creature from the Inner Rim. It is the preferred style for lightsaber-to-lightsaber dueling, and it is the most elegant of the 6 traditional forms. Makashi emphasizes precision strikes and a well-balanced footwork. A Form 2 practitioner keeps both feet, one in front of the other, on a line and advances or retreats along this line, avoiding leaps and acrobatics of Form 4. Dooku says here, "Hops and cartwheels are for the rabble. A Count of Sereno doesn't need tricks, only a swift demonstration of superiority." A successful Form 2 duel is quickly ended by penetrating an opponent's defense and landing a mark of contact or a disarming strike. Skilled duelists are proficient in 2 marks of contact. Sun Gem allows them to swiftly dislodge lightsabers with quick spinning moves or by striking and burning an enemy's fingers. Shiyak consists of a straight-ahead, piercing stabs that are a natural result of this stance. Form 2 duels are a respected tradition among those masters who have earned the honorific of Blade Master. Every year during the mid-year fete, Blade Masters exhibit their skills for fellow Jedi in the exterior courtyard of the Jedi Temple. Marked by an opening salute and a blade flourish, duels are run until all challengers have been disarmed or have conceded. The use of Form 2 experienced a resurgence during the last war, when Jedi Knights found themselves facing armies of saber-wielding Sith. Makashi's fluid attacks and feints provided a critical edge during those duels to the death. Fewer Padawans have elected to study Form 2 in the years following the defeat of Sith at Ruusan, because the odds of encountering a lightsaber-wielding enemy are now close to 0. To which Obi-Wan comments, "Wishful thinking. Master Qui-Gon's student has fallen and become dangerous. I fear more threats have yet to be uncovered." However, I, the Battlemaster, consider Form 2 the most disciplined of all forms, and I still encourage its study. So, according to this here, Form 2 has something of a classical, traditional sword fighting aspect to it. Let me share with you some ideas that I have as to what could benefit a exhibition of Form 2. Now, for one thing, I think that having a small hilt, now I sadly am not using my Vader's Vault Hero, because I think that putting a blade in that one is a bit heavier than I want to be using. It is a single-handed form, and so if I were having a hilt like the Hero, I mean, I don't suppose it's unusually heavy, but it makes it so that way it would not be, I would not have the quick and precise strikes that I would want to, unless I were to really, build up my arm and get some strength and precision that way. I would prefer, at least in my imagination, to perhaps have a smaller hilt. Form 2 practitioners would prefer a well-balanced hilt, and they would say the curved hilt variants, perhaps. It seems to me that also perhaps a small hilt, such as the Saber Forge Shatos, perhaps. Maybe the, not Initiate, the apprentice-sized hilts, perhaps, or the Chateaus, I think maybe it's anywhere from maybe 8.5 to 9.5 inches long. Perhaps the Sentinel, perhaps, is one that if I had the extra expense to purchase it, I might. I think the leather wrap might be comfortable. Or perhaps the Ultra Sabers Initiate. The V4 would be my choice of those different ones. It's simple, but it has a nice little choke point right towards the front of it, which feels like it might be right where I would need it to be. So something small that would fit, the span of my hand, but not be excessively big and not lend too much weight. Now, another thing is I'm using my 32-inch blade for demonstration, partly because in my HEMA class we use the sticks are about this size. It's not very long. There's a cup here that's fashioned onto it, and then the stick that we use, rattan, it's kind of like a bamboo-looking sort of stick, and it's really about this size, so I'm kind of used to it. But having something that's a little lighter weight, just by not being as long, helps to give a little bit of an edge. We'll talk a little bit about how, your marks of contact and your measure and such like that as to why I think it would probably be okay. But you could use a 36-inch and then just get your arm beefed up, and then you'll be fine anyway. A lighter blade. Now, this is I only have Vader's Vault blades because I only have two of them, my shorter one and my longer one. The Vader's Vault blade is thin-walled, at least this one that I have is, and so it's lighter, easier to whip around. I don't know what a heavy grade feels like, a thick-walled blade, like perhaps the V4 Infinity blade, or I know that's a thick-walled, or thick-walled day blades, for instance. They're heavier, they're thicker, and so you might not have maybe as quick as strikes as you might want to. It seems to me that Form 2 is about speed and precision. All right, gear. Now, the gear that we use for HEMA is we use the over-the-head masks, and there's like a back piece that you can purchase also to sort of cover the back of the head. And we use gloves as well. I think they're actually rapier gloves, but as you can see, I'm not very bulky, and I use my fingers as a musician, if you're familiar with my channel at all, so I want to make sure they're protected. And so the gloves that I have lots of padded parts, and it goes down to about here with large padded areas as well, so I want to keep my arms and hands protected. But that's really the most that we've been doing at this point, because we've been practicing single stick. That's what we've been learning. So, stance. Let's talk about the stance. What we use is, there is the traditional stance, which is not the one that I use. You're kind of leaning back here, and your front foot is forward, and you've got your blade up here. It looks very archaic, and it feels very archaic. For some, it works because it keeps their head back, and I'll explain why in a second. But I prefer, and we prefer most of the time, to use a engaging stance. So, how about 2 feet width apart. Your back leg is at a 90-degree angle to your opponent, and your front foot is pointed towards that. And your blade, knuckles down, pointing the blade at the opponent's face. We call that point menace. So you're basically pointing the blade right in their face. It just gives that little bit of confident or dominant edge, if you will, as opposed to having your blade up here like this, or having your blade maybe down like that, or over like this, but pointing straight at it is what we do. And according to the Jedi path, you advance or retreat in a single line. Okay, so it allows you to keep on that single line. If you were practicing something maybe more like a Taru, then you might want to be moving around in a lot more, not necessarily haphazard, but a lot more moving around them as opposed to being in a straight line. Keeping in measure. Now, we're taught in our single stick that effective combat, actual combat, has to be kept in measure. So if you were to just hold your arm out straight with your blade, then imagine that their blade here, somewhere around in here, is where their blade should be matching you with their hand. That's about good measure, because then your attacks actually mean something. They hit, they register. If you're so far away that you have to be lunging from such a distance, then it makes it a little tricky, especially for a Makashi necessarily. to be, going way in and coming way out. You see sometimes in blade contests I've seen where they're like holding it like right their saber like towards the back of the saber to try and give them as much length as they can. That's just kind of the style that they're that they're using there. But for Makashi, I think for Form 2, you want to be more directly engaged with your opponent. It seems to be. All right, single stick scoring. The way that we've done it in our class is, which, I mean, we're not meeting, of course, during this time, but the way that we were scoring is headshots only. Almost like a kind of a traditional combat of first blood drawn from the head, or in James Bond, Die Another Day, first blood drawn from the torso, and then he like pulls out the swords from the whatever it is. And so that's the way that we do it. So arm hits in our scoring doesn't count, leg hits don't count, torso doesn't count, it's only headshots is what the score is. Now for lightsabers, obviously that becomes a much more prominent idea of any point of contact. And I didn't talk about points of contact in there, but there are certain ones, such as the destruction of the enemy's weapon, which is again why I want a small hilt to do that, so that way the weapon can't be attacked and disabled. Or attacking of the hands, or the wrist, anything above the elbow. These all have different terms to them that I'm not going to go through just for time's sake. Or shiak, the stabbing movement. According to Jedi versus Sith, the Essential Guide to the Force, Sindralig is recorded as saying, as far as shiak, the stabbing motion, is sort of a if combat cannot be resolved either by disabling or disarming your opponent and death is unavoidable, in his mind, the piercing of an enemy through the heart is the most honorable way to end your opponent's life, because it's not like maiming them or destroying their body or leaving big slashes across, but it's kind of almost like an honor kill, if you will. Sounds rather Klingon, actually. So, in terms of our cuts, so let's talk about cuts here. We were taught, basically, you've got a cut to one cheek, the other cheek, one side, the other side. There are cuts to the leg as well. Of course, those aren't for scoring, but as far as our form goes, you can cut to one leg or the other, and you can cut across to the head like that. So let's see that from the side here. Oh, it's like I said, it's one-handed. I prefer to simply keep my offhand behind my back in this fashion. It just keeps it out of the way. I mean, you can have it up here, you can have it out here, you can do up here, whatever you want to. But you can have it back there, just kind of in the back, right above the belt. It's just comfortable to me. So, those cuts to one cheek, the other cheek, one side, the other side, down low again, or above like that. One cheek, other cheek, torso, other side, leg, other side of the leg, or above. Now, a lot of these cuts can be done with thrusts as well, with forward movement. So you can cut in like that, or like that, the side, other side, tap. You want to be careful with your thrusts. You don't want to over thrust yourself, because then that's a lot of pushback to try and get back. So if you're over thrusting yourself and you lose your balance or you can't get your way up, then that leaves you open to attack, especially if you've really kind of exposed yourself this way. There's so much of me laid out that could be hit. So don't overstretch yourself. A controlled thrust or a jab like that. So those are quick cuts. Now, as far as cutting, don't let your arm be way out tight like this, because if you do, then you don't really have much to go with. You have to thrust in order to get anywhere like that. So keep your arm kind of bent. That way you can strike. You can reach out and strike. Dooku's name means poison. And so you get that idea almost of a, because Form 2 is what Dooku is proficient at. He's a master in Form 2. So if you think of the striking of a serpent, it's quick, like that. Quick strikes and recoils. Alright, blocks. So you have your point menace. You're keeping them pointed at that. You kind of want to use this as your guideline for where your hand goes. You've got two parts of the blade. Let me talk about that real quick. You've got the strong of the blade, which is where you're holding it down here. The weak of the blade is up here. Now the weak of the blade moves much quicker than the strong of the blade, naturally, because it's farther away, and so it's got more distance to travel. Now the weak of the blade is, like I said, where you're strongest. So that's kind of where you want to be blocking from. Because if I push from the strong of the blade, I can hold on to it. But if I push at the weak of the blade, it's very easy to push that aside. So you want to try to block with that, the base of the blade. So block one side of the head, other side of the head, down here to the side, the other side, and you can just down low and down low for lower blocks. For headshots, you might want to think about what hand your opponent is using. If he's using his right hand, which would be coming at me from this way, I might block like this, because then his arm is over here, and then perhaps I can come across for an attack like that. But if his attacking arm is mirrored to mine, which means that he'd be left-handed, then I might block this way so I can attack like that. That's getting into counterattacks a little bit. So let me show you the blocks again. Block one cheek, other cheek, one side, the other side, down low, down low. If you end up getting two down low blocks, just go boom, boom, or boom, boom. Just real quick like that. You don't need to boom, boom, because that's a lot more movement than it is boom, boom, or 1, 2. Okay? So, let me show you on this side here. The blocks. One cheek, other cheek, side, side, down low, and the other, or if you're blocking there and down low like that. Head block, or again, head block, depending on which arm they use. Now, counterattacks. Part of Form 2 is a little bit of the redirection of the blade, or it's just appropriate use of the blade, because again, it's thinking swordsman style. It's blade-to-blade contact. So, let's say that he comes at me from this side, and I block here. I could come in with a thrust and attack his head. So, cut, or block and cut. Block, cut. Or block, cut. Something like that. And again, blocking from here, so that way I can get it away like that. Let's say that he's coming at me this way. Block, cut. Block, cut. I could even come up like that. Block, cut underneath them to get underneath his side. Block, cut. Or to try to disarm them. Let's say that, well, let's come over here. So he's blocking me, and I go block, cut. You could do like that. Block, cut to cut off his arm. Or perhaps block, cut. You have an overhead, cut like that. Or let's say he's coming at me from this side. Block, cut. Block, cut. You can just swipe straight down and get the arm. Of course, you're not going to go all the way this way. You're going to hit flesh. But block, cut. And you could just kind of go to the side a little bit so that way you distance himself away from his blade. That's one thing that I did learn from HEMA, is that having another blade there, it's kind of in the way. And you may not be able to bat it aside so strongly. Now, like with the Form 5, you would definitely be boom, boom. You'd be using your weight. That's part of the Form 5 Gemso. Where's it, Sheehan? One of them's blaster blocking, and the other one is just brute force. Using brute force to really push them out of the way. It's just really aggressive, strong swings. But with Form 2, you don't necessarily have that much power, because you're not using with both arms and all your weight. You're using more precise moves. And so you can block, kind of scooch to the side, and cut. So you can cut off their arm like that. Or let's say that he's blocking down low. So, or he's attacking down low. Say if he's over here, block, cut. I can block, cut, like that. Or he's coming down like this. So that's what that is cutting of the arm. Or block, cut, up to the head or the shoulder. Block, cut, like that. Or let's say that he's coming at my leg here, which is farther away. Attacking from this side here, my left side, which is farther back, may not happen quite as much. It may just sort of be more frontward attacking. But if he's still attacking from this area, trying to hit my leg from here, then I can block like that, and I could come up like that. So block, cut, and slice up the arm to about the elbow or so. So, or it could be block. You probably wouldn't want to go like that because, again, his blade's there. So block, you could if you wanted to, but you just kind of have to read your opponent to see how they react to different moves and different blocks like that. So that's kind of the idea on counterattacking is, you just want to be able to block at any point and know how to counterattack from there. So if he comes from there, like that, or you can now let's talk a little about feints a little bit. So one of the things also of maybe not necessarily Form 2, but just in combat in general, is learning to mislead your opponent. So let's say that you want to get him to try to a defense that you're not going to attack at, but you're tricking him. So you could do things like, you could pretend to be like that, but you're going to come around the other way. Well, let's say I'm going to try from the other side. So I might pretend I'm going to do this, but instead I pretend to move that way, but I cut. Or I might, see what I'm doing is I might pretend to be doing an overhead cut, and then I'll sweep my blade underneath. Because as he would move his blade up to block, whichever way he's doing, coming up like this, expecting an attack from up here, my blade would be coming down underneath and at least get maybe his arm, if not rip up the side of his torso. So that would be like that, or like that. So again, feints is the idea of misdirecting their blade by making them think an attack is coming one way, but you're truly going to attack from another. Now let's maybe look at it from the side here. So, see, I want to, gotta be careful I don't hit the wall. If I'm going to, now for instance, my teacher got me once where I thought that he was going to be attacking me this way because I saw him move, but what he did was he went around this way and brought his blade around and got me square on the head. It was a clean hit. Well, not that kind of hit. Clank! He got me like that, and so that was a block that I wasn't ready for. So he came in. I kind of went in, but I got my blade up this way and I blocked it. So we were locked there. We were stuck. Locks is another idea. Is you have to think when you're in a lock. You have to be careful to think, all right, if I move my blade, he's going to come down and get me again. So you might just kind of have to push off. You might not be able to get a redirect to try to get him. I mean, at most you might get a double, but if anything, he's coming down on you like this, you're probably just going to have to push off and find a new method of attack. So, I don't want to go on for much longer, but that gives some basic ideas of my interpretation of how Form 2 would work. And again, I apologize that I don't have the aid of a glowing lightsaber blade. I don't know if a new lightsaber is going to be in the budget anytime soon for my situation, but Anyway, I hope that that was useful to you. I appreciate the feedback and support from the previous video that I made about lightsaber combat, and I hope that this was equally as interesting to you. Please continue to be safe. I wish you all the best. I wish you health and safety, and as always, may the Force be with you.